Welcome to Bedtime Finance Stories. Tonight, we bring you a gentle reflection titled Bedtime Finance Story: 5 Quiet Steps to Wealth. In the stillness of night, when the world slows and worries fade, we will walk together through a calm journey of money and meaning. Not in hurried tones, not with restless ambition, but with soft footsteps that carry us toward understanding. We will linger on awareness, on patience, on the simple choices that quietly shape a life of peace. Each step is a lantern in the dark, guiding us closer to freedom, to balance, and to rest. Allow the words to settle slowly, like falling leaves, and let the story soothe the mind as it drifts toward sleep. This is not a tale of riches won in haste, but of calm lessons whispered across time. Now, let us begin. Bedtime Finance Story: 5 Quiet Steps to Wealth. Bedtime. Finance Story: 5 Quiet Steps to Wealth, the Whisper of Beginnings. In the soft stillness of the evening, where silence drifts like mist upon a lake, wealth does not appear as gold stacked high or coins scattered on a polished table. Instead, it begins as a faint whisper, a gentle awareness that life is a river of choices. The first quiet step, always overlooked in the rush of noise, is the recognition of where you stand. Many men and women have walked through life without pause, carrying burdens of bills, loans, and forgotten promises. They did not notice how debt grew like creeping ivy, wrapping its tendrils around their freedom. Yet in the quiet, when one sits alone with a candle, there is clarity. To acknowledge the truth of one's finances is to place a lantern in the dark. The whisper of beginnings tells us, count slowly. Count the coins in your pocket. Count the expenses that drift away each month like leaves in the wind. Do not rush. Do not scorn yourself. Do not dream too wildly yet. Simply observe. Wealth begins not with ambition, but with awareness. History shows us this quiet truth. When the stock market trembled in 1929, when banks closed their doors, families who survived were not those who gambled boldly, but those who counted patiently, who kept track of bread, of flour, of the smallest cent. They understood that to face the truth calmly is the first shield against despair. As the night deepens, imagine yourself writing a simple list. The numbers are not cruel, they are companions who reveal your path. What you owe, what you earn, what you spend. Each digit is not an enemy, but a lantern. In the quiet light of numbers, you begin to see yourself more clearly. Reflection. Awareness is the first step. To sit in silence and count without judgment is already wealth's beginning. The gentle weight of debt is often spoken of with fear, as if it were a monster crouching in the dark. But under the calm moonlight, it appears differently. Debt is not a monster, but a shadow of yesterday's choices asking to be acknowledged. It does not vanish with anger or denial. It softens only when one sits with it, patiently, without trembling. Imagine an old man sitting at a table with letters spread before him. Some are bills, some are contracts, some are quiet reminders. He does not tear them, nor does he flee. He breathes slowly. He reads them as one might read old memories. For in truth, every debt is a story. A choice once made, a hope once taken, a need once fulfilled. The quiet step here is acceptance. Not the harsh acceptance of despair, but the soft acceptance of ownership. Yes, this is mine. I borrowed, I spent, I consumed. With this acceptance comes calm. Only then can one move forward. Consider history again. After the Second World War, nations carried enormous debts, numbers so large they seemed unbearable. Yet through patience, restructuring, and years of steady repayment, even these mountains diminished. Time and discipline, not panic, allowed nations to breathe again. So too with personal lives. A young family in the 1970s, burdened with a mortgage during oil crises, learned to live simply. They grew vegetables, mended clothes, and walked instead of drove. Their debt was not erased overnight, but year by year, it loosened its hold. Quiet steps, humble choices, patient evenings, these were the tools. Tonight, as you drift toward sleep, let the idea settle gently. Your debts are not eternal. They are heavy, yes, but heaviness can be carried with balance. If you walk steadily, the load does not crush. Reflection. Debt becomes lighter when faced calmly. It is not a monster, but a shadow that fades with each quiet step forward. The slow ritual of saving wealth does not bloom from sudden windfalls or reckless gambles, but from rituals as soft as the turning of seasons. The third quiet step is saving. Not the saving of kings or bankers, but the saving of a humble soul who places a coin aside day by day, without haste, without boasting. Picture an old clay jar resting in a kitchen corner. Each evening, a coin falls within, echoing lightly. The sound is not loud, but over years it becomes a rhythm of hope. Generations before us lived by this rhythm. Farmers saved seed grain, not for today's meal, but for tomorrow's harvest. Merchants in ancient markets tucked away silver pieces in hidden pouches, trusting that the future would ask for them. There is nothing dramatic in saving. It is the quiet opposite of drama, and yet its power is immense. A worker in the 1950s who saved $1 a week might, after decades, leave a legacy far greater than one who chased fleeting fortunes. The small, repeated act grows silently, like moss covering stone. Modern markets speak of compounding, of interest that breeds interest, but beneath the numbers lies a simple truth. Patience multiplies. Time is wealth's most faithful ally, and saving is the way one befriends time. Do not think of saving as deprivation. Think of it as planting trees whose shade you may one day rest beneath. Each small sacrifice, each quiet restraint is not loss, but investment in calmness. As you drift deeper into rest, imagine a riverbank where drops of water gather. Slowly, they become a stream, then a river, then a sea. So too does saving flow. What begins as a trickle becomes an ocean. Reflection. Saving is a gentle ritual, a rhythm of patience that transforms small acts into oceans of possibility. The patience of investment. After saving comes the next quiet step, the art of allowing your savings to grow. Yet investment is not the fevered trading floor, with men shouting and screens flashing. It is something far gentler, a patience stretched across years, not days. In history, there are many examples. Farmers plant seeds in spring, and though they water, though they wait, they cannot force the wheat to rise faster. It grows in its season. In the same way, money entrusted to investments requires patience, not panic. Imagine yourself in a garden at twilight. You place a small sapling into the soil. You cannot pull at its leaves to make it taller. You can only water, prune, and protect. So it is with stocks, bonds, or property. True investors do not rush. They allow time to do the quiet work. There is comfort in remembering the long cycles of markets. The Great Depression eventually gave way to recovery. The oil crises of the 1970s eventually gave way to stability. Even the crashes of the early 2000s softened into growth again. Wealth flows like the tide. It ebbs, it returns. For the restless mind, investment is difficult. It demands stillness. To watch numbers rise and fall without trembling requires inner calm. But this is why it is a quiet step. To invest is to practice patience, to believe in tomorrow without needing it today. As you rest, let the thought settle gently. Your role is not to control every fluctuation, but to trust the seasons of growth. You place the seed, and then you wait, as countless generations before you have waited for a harvest. Reflection. Investment is not noise, but silence. The trust that time, left undisturbed, brings forth abundance. The discipline of simplicity. After patience comes discipline. Wealth does not live in palaces filled with endless desires, but in the quiet rooms of those who know contentment. The fifth step, simplicity, is often overlooked, yet it is the soil in which savings and investments take root. Simplicity is not deprivation, it is clarity. It is the decision to live with less noise, fewer cravings, and gentler habits. To choose a modest meal instead of a lavish one. To walk instead of buying another machine. To mend instead of discarding. History has honored such lives. The philosopher Diogenes slept in a barrel, owning almost nothing. Yet he was not poor in spirit. In contrast, kings who surrounded themselves with excess often drowned in debt, borrowing to maintain appearances that could never last. Simplicity shields us from this endless chase. In modern times, families who weather economic storms are not the ones who spend furiously, but the ones who embrace frugality. They cook at home, they fix what breaks, they savor what they have. They understand that wealth grows not only by earning more, but by desiring less. Picture a room at night. The lamp is small, the floor uncluttered. A simple chair, a simple table, a warm blanket. Nothing more is needed. In such a space, the mind is calm, the heart is steady. This is the essence of financial peace. Simplicity is not a step to endure, but a step to cherish. It frees you from chains unseen, from the whispers of advertising, from the endless longing for more. In its quiet, you discover wealth already within reach. Reflection. Simplicity is wealth itself, the gentle art of needing less, and in needing less, finding more. The memory of crises. As the path unfolds, one must not forget the memory of storms. Crises come like sudden winds, tearing through markets, shaking nations, unsettling lives. To walk towards wealth is not to avoid crises, but to carry their memory, so when they arrive again, you are not undone. Think of the Great Depression, when families stood in bread lines stretching down gray streets. Think of the Asian financial crisis in 1997, when currencies collapsed and ordinary lives were turned upside down. Think of the global crash in 2008, when banks once thought immortal bent under the weight of their greed. And yet, life continued. After ashes, there was rebuilding. After collapse, there was renewal. Families who endured did so not by brilliance, but by resilience. They remembered lessons. Save, live simply, do not borrow beyond measure. Keep patience as a shield. Crises teach humility. They remind us that wealth is not unshakable stone, but shifting sand. Markets may rise, fortunes may swell, but in a night they can vanish. What remains steady is character, discipline, and the quiet steps you have taken. In your own life, imagine a storm arriving. Your job ends, your savings shrink, your debts whisper louder. What shields you then? It is not sudden miracles, but the quiet foundation you built long before. The savings jar, the modest lifestyle, the steady investments. When you recall these memories, fear softens. Crises lose some of their terror because you have already walked with their ghosts. You know that storms come and storms pass. Wealth, like the tide, returns in time. Reflection. To remember past crises is to walk calmly into tomorrow. The memory of storms becomes the strength to endure them again. The quiet strength of consistency. Wealth, like rivers carving valleys, is not formed by sudden floods, but by steady streams. Consistency is the seventh step, and it is quieter than all the others. It requires no genius, no sudden luck, no grand invention, only the daily, gentle rhythm of staying the course. Picture an ordinary worker in the 1960s. Each month, he saved a small portion of his modest income. The world around him shifted. Wars came, markets swayed, presidents changed. But his ritual remained. Coin after coin, month after month, 40 years later, he possessed a nest egg larger than neighbors who earned far more. It was not brilliance that gave him wealth, but constancy. In finance, the principle of dollar-cost averaging speaks this truth. Investing regularly, regardless of price, smooths the path. One avoids the drama of buying high or the despair of selling low. One simply continues. The steady hand prevails where the restless heart falters. Consistency appears in other places too. Consider the monks who copied manuscripts for centuries, line by line, preserving wisdom through dark ages. Or farmers who sowed each season, whether rain threatened or sunshine smiled. They did not ask whether today was perfect. They trusted that small actions, repeated, shaped the future. So too with you. Whether it is saving, repaying debt, or investing, the strength lies not in what you do once, but what you do always. The jar filled, the ledger balanced, the investment made again and again. As you drift deeper into quiet, remember, consistency is wealth's heartbeat. Slow, steady, unfaltering. Reflection. The power of wealth lies not in sudden acts, but in steady rhythms that endure across time. The shadows of desire. No journey is without obstacles. The 8th step is learning to walk past the shadows of desire. For desire is endless, and without discipline, it consumes all that is saved. In the old days, a merchant might have been tempted by silk, by spices, by jewels glittering in the bazaar. Today, temptations come in different clothing. Advertisements glowing on screens, voices promising happiness with each purchase. The shadow whispers, "Take more, buy now, enjoy without waiting." But wealth slips away when desires are unrestrained. Consider the rise of consumer credit in the mid-20th century. Families once cautious with cash began to borrow freely. They filled homes with televisions, furniture, cars bought on installment. For a time, comfort swelled. Yet debts grew too, quietly, until they outweighed the treasures. History teaches this lesson through nations as well as individuals. The Roman Empire, once disciplined, grew addicted to luxury. Baths, banquets, spectacles, all financed by taxes and debt. The empire weakened, not from lack of power, but from excess. Desire consumed discipline and decline followed. Yet desire itself is not evil. To wish is human. The lesson is balance. To pause before purchase, to ask softly, "Is this necessary? Or is this shadow leading me astray?" Imagine a quiet evening where you look at what you already own, the warm bed, the sturdy roof, the food on the table. Gratitude dims the hunger for more. Wealth grows not by accumulation alone, but by resisting the endless appetite for what is unnecessary. Reflection. Wealth is preserved not by feeding desire, but by recognizing its shadows and walking past them calmly. The language of money. The 9th step is learning to listen to the language of money, not the shouting of markets or the clamor of salesmen, but the quiet language written in numbers, contracts, and patterns. Money speaks, but softly. It tells you whether your expenses outrun your income. It tells you how interest gathers against you or for you. It reveals where opportunities rest and where dangers lurk. To ignore this language is to walk blindfolded. To listen is to gain clarity. In history, entire nations faltered because leaders ignored this quiet language. When Argentina faced hyperinflation in the 1980s, money spoke clearly. Prices doubled, tripled, spiraled. Yet many resisted listening until it was too late. Families who understood numbers, who shifted savings into stable assets, endured. Those who closed their ears suffered greater loss. For the individual, financial literacy is a lantern. to know how interest compounds, how debt multiplies, how investments yield. This knowledge turns shadows into light. The concepts are not complicated, but they require attention. Imagine sitting with a ledger. The pages open, the ink calm on paper. You trace the flows of money in and out. Slowly, patterns emerge. The unnecessary subscription, the quiet leak of fees, the unnoticed rise of expenses. By listening, you gain control. This language is not spoken with excitement. It is slow, methodical, almost meditative. Each number is a syllable, each calculation a phrase. Over time, you become fluent, and in that fluency lies freedom. Reflection. Money has a language of its own. To listen patiently is to uncover wisdom that guards wealth. The seasons of wealth. Wealth, like nature, moves in seasons. There is a time to gather, a time to plant, a time to harvest, and a time to rest. To walk this path wisely, one must accept the rhythm rather than resist it. Consider the farmer again. In spring, he scatters seeds with hope. In summer, he tends with labor. In autumn, he reaps patiently, and in winter, he waits. Each season has its place. If he demanded harvest in spring, he would starve. If he ignored planting, autumn would bring him nothing. So it is with money. Youth may be the spring of labor and learning. Middle years may be the summer of growth and investment. Later years may be the autumn of harvesting returns, enjoying fruits and offering shade to others. Old age, like winter, is not barren. It is a time of rest, reflection, and passing wisdom to the young. History mirrors these cycles. Economies rise, expand, slow, and rest. The Roaring Twenties were followed by the Great Depression. The post-war boom gave way to recessions. Yet always, after winter, spring comes again. Those who trust the seasons, who prepare in times of plenty and endure in times of scarcity, remain steady. As you rest tonight, imagine your own life as a garden. Ask yourself, which season am I in? Am I planting, tending, or harvesting? Let the rhythm guide you instead of resisting it. For wealth grows not in haste, but in harmony with time's seasons. Reflection. Wealth has seasons, as does life. To walk with them calmly is to remain in step with time itself. The legacy of quiet choices. The 11th step is legacy. Wealth, in its truest sense, is not merely coins or accounts. It is the quiet choices that ripple outward, shaping others long after you are gone. Think of families who taught children to save, to live simply, to respect money. Even if they left modest sums, they left behind habits more precious than gold. These children, raised with discipline, often prospered more than heirs of vast fortunes squandered in waste. History remembers both sides. The Vanderbilt family in America, heirs of one of the richest men in the 19th century, lost much of their fortune within a few generations. Extravagance consumed it. In contrast, countless ordinary families, nameless in history books, built generational stability not through wealth alone, but through teaching values, thrift, patience, gratitude. Legacy is not loud. It is in the quiet advice shared at a kitchen table. It is in the example of a parent mending clothes rather than buying new. It is in the discipline of keeping promises, paying debts, living within means. Such habits echo further than riches ever can. Imagine the end of a long life. You look back, not at numbers in an account, but at faces of those who learned from you. Did you pass on calmness? Did you show that wealth is not greed, but balance? Legacy is written not in monuments, but in lives touched by your example. Reflection. Wealth's greatest gift is not possession, but legacy, the quiet habits that endure in others after we are gone. The quiet arrival. At last, the 12th step is not a step at all, but an arrival. Wealth, walked patiently, is not loud or sudden. It is a gentle place where one feels unburdened. It is not about riches that glitter, but about freedom from fear, from hunger, from endless want. Picture a quiet evening in old age. The debts have been repaid, the savings have grown, the storms have passed. The room is simple, but it is enough. The mind is calm because choices were made slowly, steadily, with care. This arrival is not the end of desire, but the end of its power over you. It is not the absence of problems, but the presence of resilience. You no longer chase, you no longer fear. You rest. Wealth, in its quietest form, is peace. It is the ability to breathe without the weight of unpaid burdens. It is the comfort of knowing tomorrow is provided for. It is the freedom to give, to rest, to reflect. History, once filled with storms and crises, fades into lessons. The choices you made, awareness, acceptance of debt, saving, investing, simplicity, resilience, they form the path that brought you here. Step by step, year by year, the journey shaped you. Now, in this twilight, you understand. Wealth was never only numbers. It was the calmness you carried, the patience you practiced, the gratitude you nurtured. That is the final treasure. Reflection. True wealth is quiet arrival. The peace of knowing you have walked steadily and arrived where calmness lives. The echo of gratitude. When the long path of wealth has been walked, when debts have been faced, savings nurtured, and patience practiced, there remains a final companion often forgotten. Gratitude. Gratitude does not change numbers on a page, yet it transforms the weight they carry. In quiet evenings, those who pause to give thanks discover that wealth is not measured only in accounts, but in moments. A modest meal shared with family, a roof that shelters through storms, the steady rhythm of bills paid on time, these are riches in themselves. Gratitude turns even the smallest possessions into treasures. History offers examples of nations rebuilding after ruin, of communities thriving despite scarcity because they chose to see what remained instead of what was lost. After wars, families who gathered with little more than bread and companionship were rich in spirit. Their gratitude gave them strength to rebuild. To practice gratitude is to silence the restless hunger for more. It is to look around and say softly, "This is enough." It does not deny ambition, but it calms the chase. Gratitude makes room for peace, and peace is the deepest form of wealth. As you drift tonight, let gratitude echo like a soft bell. Its sound reminds you that wealth is not only in distant goals, but also in the quiet abundance of this very moment. Reflection. Gratitude is the gentle echo of wealth, turning what you have into enough, and enough into peace. The final rest. The journey has been long, carried step by step through awareness, patience, simplicity, resilience, and legacy. Each chapter unfolded not with urgency, but with quiet reflection, like waves rolling gently to shore. Now, as the night deepens, the story finds its close. Wealth, you see, was never only about coins, markets, or accounts. It was about the calm strength found in facing debt without fear. It was about the small coin placed aside in a jar, the trust in seasons of growth, the discipline of living simply, and the resilience learned from crises. It was about the habits passed to others, and the peace of arriving at a life no longer bound by want. At the end of this path, there is no noise, no clamor of victory, only a quiet room, a steady breath, and the gentle knowledge that enough has always been here. Wealth has become not a chase, but a resting place. So now, let the story fade into silence. Let gratitude settle over you like a warm blanket. And as sleep approaches, remember, the quiet steps are the true steps. Wealth is peace, and peace is the wealth you carry into the night. Reflection. In the stillness, the journey is complete. Wealth has become rest, and rest has become wealth.